My beloved child, there are seasons in life when the ground beneath you begins to shift so quietly that you almost mistake it for imagination. You wake up one morning and nothing looks different, yet something inside you feels as though it is standing at the edge of a doorway. Not a dramatic doorway. Not one framed with music and celebration. Just a simple threshold between what has been and what is preparing to begin. You may be closer to that threshold than you realize. There is someone entering your life, or perhaps already standing inside it, whose presence does not match the picture you once painted in your mind. You thought you understood the timeline. You believed love would arrive in a particular form, at a particular pace, wrapped in familiar qualities. But this connection feels different. It carries a quiet certainty instead of loud promises. It feels steady instead of overwhelming. And the most unexpected detail of all is this. The person who may stand beside you in your next chapter could be younger than you expected, yet more established than you imagined possible. At first, that detail unsettles you. Age has always carried assumptions. You associate it with experience, stability, direction. You built silent rules about who should be further ahead, who should be guiding, who should be learning. Yet here comes someone who disrupts that entire structure without trying to. They do not announce their accomplishments. They do not carry themselves like someone seeking applause. Their success sits lightly on them, like something earned through quiet discipline rather than noise. And when you look closer, you begin to notice something even more important than what they have built. You notice how they listen. In a world that taught them to move quickly, to calculate outcomes, to anticipate opportunities, they slow down with you. Conversations stretch longer than expected. Silences do not feel awkward. They ask questions not because they need information, but because they want understanding. And somewhere in those exchanges, something subtle shifts inside both of you. The possibility of moving begins to appear. Not immediately. Not in a way that demands boxes or announcements. It begins as a casual mention of another city. A project that could expand. An opportunity that offers flexibility. You nod. You comment. You treat it like one of many directions life could take. But then the same place is mentioned again. And again. The tone changes. The language changes. Instead of saying, "I might go there," they say, "It's interesting there." Then eventually, without realizing it, they say, "We could like it there." That word hangs in the air longer than either of you expect. We. You pretend not to notice how your heart responds to it. They pretend it slipped out casually. Yet both of you feel the shift. The future has been quietly restructured from singular to shared. And that is when marriage stops being a distant concept and starts becoming a logical extension. Not because someone is rushing. Not because there is pressure from family or society. But because when two lives begin overlapping in practical conversations, permanence begins hiding inside ordinary details. Where would you live? What kind of home would feel right? How would your goals coexist without either one shrinking? These are not fantasy questions. They are blueprint questions. The younger, successful person you never expected may not be searching for admiration. They may be searching for relief. Relief from always being the one who knows the answer. Relief from carrying every decision alone. Relief from a world that sees their achievements before it sees their humanity. And when they sit across from you, they feel something unfamiliar. They feel seen without performance. You do not measure them against their milestones. You do not calculate their net worth against their age. You do not treat their accomplishments as a pedestal. You respond to their ideas. You challenge them gently. You disagree without intimidation. You laugh without agenda. That balance unsettles them at first. They are used to control. Used to clarity. Used to being the decisive one. Yet with you, they discover a different kind of strength. Not loud. Not competitive. Just grounded. And that grounding becomes the reason they begin imagining a shared life sooner than they planned. Picture an evening where the conversation drifts toward what each of you wants long-term. You speak about peace. About meaning. About building something that feels stable without feeling stagnant. You do not realize they are memorizing your words. Later, alone, they replay that conversation. Success taught them how to build companies, projects, systems. It did not teach them how to build a home. And suddenly they are asking themselves a question that never felt urgent before: if I keep building everything alone, who will stand inside it with me? Your name keeps appearing in that answer. The move becomes more specific. A timeline appears. Not fixed, but realistic. There is a month when it would make sense. A window when relocation aligns with their next expansion. They begin researching neighborhoods. You notice how carefully they listen when you describe what makes a place feel comfortable. You mention loving natural light. They remember. You mention wanting a quiet street but access to life nearby. They remember. You mention needing space for your own work, your own ambitions. They remember. They are not gathering data. They are collecting pieces of a shared future. And then comes a moment you almost overlook. They reconsider an opportunity. On paper, it is perfect. Larger salary. Greater recognition. Faster growth. Yet it demands a location you once said would feel isolating. They pause. For perhaps the first time in years, they hesitate over something that should be obvious. You ask what is wrong. They answer honestly. It doesn't feel right anymore. You do not yet understand that you are part of that calculation. Their definition of success is changing. Before, it meant expansion. Now, it includes alignment. This is where the age difference dissolves further. Because maturity reveals itself not in numbers but in decisions. They are no longer chasing the biggest option. They are choosing the one that supports the life they are quietly designing with you. The word marriage is still unspoken. Yet commitment is already alive. It appears in the way they protect time with you. In the way they speak about future holidays as if planning around your presence is natural. In the way they ask, "Would this work for you?" instead of announcing, this is what I'm doing. One evening, they show you something unexpected. A property listing. They pretend it is casual. Just curious what you think. You scroll. You comment on the kitchen. On the balcony. On the morning light. You say it feels warm. They watch your face more than the screen. Because what they are really asking is not about the house. They are asking whether you can see yourself there. Weeks pass. The conversations deepen. You begin imagining packing not out of urgency but out of intention. Which parts of your life would you bring? Which habits would you leave behind? What routines would change? You realize you are not being absorbed into someone else's world. You are being invited to co-create one. And that invitation feels different. One night, during a discussion about timing, they grow quiet. You sense it. They take a breath and say, "If we do this, I don't want it to be temporary." The word hangs there. Temporary. You ask what they mean. I don't want to move together just to see what happens. I want to know what we're building toward. Your heartbeat shifts. Now marriage is no longer implied. It is sitting gently in the conversation. Not as a demand. Not as a deadline. As direction. You expected pressure. Instead, you feel clarity. They are not asking you to abandon your life. They are asking whether you want to expand it with them. And here is the part that surprises you most. They admit they became serious about you much earlier than you realized. There was a day, completely ordinary, when you spoke about your dreams without trying to impress them. You admitted uncertainty in certain areas. You shared your fears calmly. You did not perform strength, you embodied honesty. That was the day something changed for them. They are used to certainty. Used to strategic plans. Used to measurable outcomes. With you, they discovered something different, the willingness to figure things out together. Achievement gave them independence. You offer partnership. Those are not the same. The move becomes official. A date is discussed. A visit is planned. You walk through unfamiliar streets side by side. You comment on small details. They imagine grocery stores. You imagine morning coffee. The future feels tangible, not overwhelming. At one property, you linger. There is a quiet room at the back. Light pours in softly. You picture a desk there. You picture evenings. They notice. Later, they confess something else. They have been keeping a small memory from early in your connection. A photograph. A message. A token from a simple day. That was the first time I imagined marrying you, they say. You stare at them, stunned. While you were questioning timelines, they were safeguarding possibility. And suddenly the entire journey makes sense. Their success never needed admiration. It needed meaning. And meaning arrived in your presence. Now there is only one question left. Are you ready? Because leaving familiarity is never easy. Even when what awaits you feels right. You look around your current life. You acknowledge its role in shaping you. You honor it. But you also feel the quiet truth rising. You have outgrown certain boundaries. The younger, successful person beside you does not rush your answer. They hold your hand. They wait. For perhaps the first time in their life, they allow something precious to unfold at mutual speed. And you realize something profound. This is not about age. Not about status. Not about proving worth. It is about two individuals choosing alignment over ego. They tell you they once believed marriage should wait until everything was complete. Until the career plateaued. Until every milestone was achieved. Now they understand something deeper. There will always be another milestone. But there may not always be this connection. So they ask you, quietly, sincerely, will you build this with me? And the image that comes to your mind is not a wedding day. It is an ordinary Tuesday. Coffee in the morning. Separate goals. Shared laughter at night. Silence that feels safe. Peace. You answer not from excitement alone, but from grounded awareness. Yes. Because you are not stepping into someone else's finished life. You are stepping into a chapter still being written. Boxes will be packed. Keys will be exchanged. There will be moments of uncertainty. Adjustments. Growth. But there will also be something rare. A partnership where success slows down long enough to notice love. A relationship where age becomes irrelevant because respect is equal. A future where ambition and tenderness share the same space. And one day, perhaps sooner than expected, a ring will not feel like a sudden event. It will feel like a confirmation. Because the commitment began long before the question was spoken. It began the first time they chose alignment over applause. The first time they said, "we," without correcting themselves. The first time they imagined coming home and saw you there. My beloved child, the map of your life may indeed be changing. Not loudly. Not recklessly. But deliberately. And when you finally stand in that new home, surrounded by unfamiliar walls and familiar presence, you will understand something that once seemed impossible. You did not lose your old life. You expanded it. You did not compete with their success. You redefined it together. You did not rush toward marriage. You grew into it. And the greatest surprise of all will not be that your soulmate was younger. Or more successful. It will be that someone capable of building empires chose to build a home with you. And you chose them back. My beloved child, sometimes the greatest turning points in your life do not arrive with noise. They do not knock loudly on your door or demand your attention. They arrive quietly, disguised as ordinary conversations, casual questions, small shifts in language that most people would overlook. And yet, those small shifts carry the weight of an entirely new future. You may already be standing inside one of those moments. There is a connection forming in your life that refuses to follow the script you once imagined. You thought you understood how love would look. You believed you would recognize it instantly, that it would fit the outline you created years ago. Perhaps you assumed the person would be older, further along in life, someone whose timeline mirrored yours exactly. But instead, something unexpected is unfolding. The person who feels increasingly significant may be younger than you anticipated. And strangely, more established than you expected. At first, your mind tries to organize this contradiction. Younger often means still building, still exploring, still uncertain. Yet this person carries themselves with a steadiness that does not need to be announced. Their accomplishments are real, but they do not lead with them. Their confidence is present, but it is not loud. They have learned how to move forward quickly in life, how to identify opportunities before others see them, how to make decisions without hesitation. And then they meet you. For perhaps the first time in a long while, they hesitate. Not because they doubt you. Because they understand you matter. You may not realize how unusual that is for them. Their life has rewarded decisiveness. When an opportunity appears, they evaluate it, calculate risk, and act. That pattern built their success. But with you, something interrupts that rhythm. They cannot measure this connection on a spreadsheet. They cannot accelerate it through strategy. They cannot predict it with certainty. And that unfamiliar vulnerability makes the connection deeper. The idea of moving begins to surface gradually. It is never presented as a dramatic announcement. Instead, it slips into conversation like a possibility that feels almost too simple to notice. A new city might offer growth. A different location could provide better balance. There is talk of expansion, of flexibility, of timing. You respond politely at first. Then you notice how often the same place returns to the conversation. You notice how their tone shifts when they describe it. You notice how they begin asking you questions that extend beyond curiosity. Would you ever live somewhere like that? Do you prefer being close to everything or somewhere quieter? What kind of home actually makes you feel settled? These are not surface questions. They are alignment questions. Somewhere in the middle of those conversations, a subtle transformation happens. The future is no longer described as something they will pursue alone. Without fanfare, the language changes. We could make it work there. We might like that neighborhood. We would have more space. That single word reshapes everything. We. You pretend not to notice how naturally it now appears. But you feel it. And they feel it too. Because that word does not slip out accidentally. It emerges when someone has already begun making emotional room for you. Marriage, at this stage, is still unspoken. Yet its foundation is quietly being poured. Commitment rarely begins with a ring. It begins with consideration. You start noticing small adjustments in their life. A meeting is rescheduled so they can spend time with you. A professional opportunity is evaluated differently because it would require distance. A plan they once seemed certain about is reconsidered after one honest conversation with you. You might think these are minor gestures. They are not. For someone who built their world through rapid, confident decisions, slowing down is significant. And the reason for that shift is simple. You have become part of their equation. There is an evening when the conversation deepens unexpectedly. You are both relaxed, perhaps tired from a long day, speaking honestly without preparation. The topic drifts toward the future. You mention something you want someday. Not extravagance. Not status. Something meaningful. Peace. Stability. Growth without chaos. You speak naturally, then move on. But they do not. Later, alone, they replay your words. Success has given them mobility. It has given them options. It has allowed them to imagine living almost anywhere. But until now, they never paused to ask where they would feel at home. That concept required another person. And you are the first person who made home feel imaginable. The possibility of relocating becomes more tangible. There are specific dates now. Not immediate, but realistic. A professional transition could happen within months. The timing would make sense. The logistics are workable. They show you a property listing one afternoon. Casual. Almost dismissive. Just curious what you think. You scroll through the images. You comment on the natural light. The layout. The kitchen. You mention how mornings would feel there. They are not watching the screen. They are watching your expression. Because what matters most to them is not whether the property is impressive. It is whether you can picture yourself inside it. Weeks pass. The idea grows roots. You begin imagining packing. You consider which parts of your current life belong in the next chapter. You feel both excitement and resistance. Leaving familiarity is never simple. Even when the future feels promising, the past carries comfort. And this is where their maturity reveals itself fully. They do not rush you. They do not frame the move as something you must accept. Instead, they ask what you would need to feel secure. They ask what parts of your independence must remain untouched. They ask how your ambitions would fit into the new environment. For someone younger, for someone highly successful, this level of consideration surprises you. You expected confidence. You did not expect humility. One night, while discussing timing, they grow quiet. You sense a shift. They say softly, "If we move, I don't want it to be temporary." You look at them. "I don't want to build something halfway," they continue. "If we do this, I want to know we're building towards something permanent." The air changes. Marriage is no longer implied. It is present. But it does not feel rushed. It feels aligned. They are not chasing a ceremony. They are choosing direction. You realize something important in that moment. Their age once made you cautious. You wondered whether they would eventually outgrow the relationship, whether their momentum would pull them elsewhere. But now you see the opposite truth. They are choosing stability while still ascending. They are deciding that success without partnership feels incomplete. Later, they confess something that reorders your understanding entirely. They became serious about you much earlier than you realized. There was a day, entirely ordinary, when you disagreed with them calmly. Not aggressively. Not defensively. You simply offered your perspective. Most people in their life defer to them. Their achievements create unspoken authority. You did not. And that is what convinced them. Because admiration fades. Compatibility endures. They do not need someone impressed. They need someone real. As plans solidify, you visit the city together. You walk through neighborhoods. You test the rhythm of unfamiliar streets. You notice small details. The way sunlight hits certain buildings. The quiet hum of early mornings. The energy of evening. At one home, you pause longer than expected. There is a simple room with wide windows. You imagine a desk there. You imagine working while they move through the kitchen. You imagine quiet evenings. They notice your stillness. Later, in the car, they admit something else. They once believed marriage should wait until everything was perfectly established. Until every milestone was reached. Until success felt secure beyond doubt. Now they understand something different. There will always be another milestone. Another opportunity. Another level. If they wait for completion, they will never begin living. And living, to them now, includes you. You begin changing too. At first, their success felt like a spotlight. Bright. Almost intimidating. You wondered whether your own timeline measured up. Gradually, that comparison dissolves. You stop seeing their achievements first. You see their humanity. The way they laugh when they are relaxed. The way they grow thoughtful when something truly matters. The way they remember details you forgot mentioning. You stop asking whether someone like them could choose you. You begin asking whether you are ready to choose them. That is the healthier question. Then comes another revelation. They turned down a major opportunity. You are stunned. It would have accelerated everything. More prestige. More income. More visibility. Why decline it? It would have been perfect professionally, they say. But it didn't fit the life I want. And you realize you are part of that life. Not as an accessory. As a partner. Conversations about marriage grow more practical. You discuss finances. Expectations. Family dynamics. Personal space. Conflict resolution. Not romantic fantasy. Real structure. And strangely, that realism makes the possibility feel safer. You are not building a dream. You are building a foundation. One evening, they show you something small they have kept from early in your relationship. A simple reminder from a day you barely remember. That was the first time I imagined marrying you, they say. You are quiet. While you were cautious, they were already certain. But they waited. Because they wanted your choice, not your compliance. Now everything converges. The move is feasible. The timeline aligns. The practical barriers shrink. There is no longer a dramatic obstacle preventing the future from unfolding. And that is when fear briefly appears. Because choosing one future means releasing another. You look at your current life. You appreciate it. You acknowledge how it shaped you. But you also feel a truth rising gently. You have grown beyond its boundaries. They hold your hand. Not tightly. Not urgently. Just enough to remind you that this step would not be taken alone. And then, one quiet morning, clarity arrives. Not fireworks. Not overwhelming emotion. Just certainty. You realize you are not being asked to abandon yourself. You are being invited to expand. Marriage no longer feels like a distant ceremony. It feels like an extension of decisions already made. The commitment began the moment they reconsidered an opportunity because of you. The moment they said, "we," without correction. The moment they protected space for your dreams inside their plans. One day, perhaps sooner than expected, they will ask you formally. But when they do, it will not feel like the beginning. It will feel like confirmation. Because the real proposal happened slowly, through consistency, through alignment, through mutual respect. My beloved child, the most extraordinary part of this story is not that your soulmate may be younger. It is not even that they may be more successful than you imagined. It is that someone who learned how to move rapidly through life has chosen to slow down for you. Someone capable of building empires has decided that building a home matters more. And when you stand in that new space, surrounded by unfamiliar walls and shared laughter, you will understand something profound. The move was not just geographic. It was emotional. The marriage was not sudden. It was cultivated. The love was not dramatic. It was deliberate. And the greatest surprise of all will be this: you did not need to become someone else to deserve it. You simply needed to be exactly who you are. And they chose you. Not because of age. Not because of status. Not because of convenience. But because when they imagined the rest of their life, you were already standing inside it. And you, finally, were ready to step forward too.